The meeting is now called to order. Welcome to the regular town council meeting, the town of Cave Creek, Arizona, Monday, December 4th, 2023. The meeting is now called to order and we'll have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Augerton. Councilmember Bunch.
Here.
Councilmember Alcama.
Here.
Councilmember McGuire.
Present.
Councilmember Rhodes. Vice Mayor Royer. Here. Mayor Morris.
Present. First thing on the agenda tonight is an executive session, council discussion, consultation, direction to and legal advice from the town attorney pursuant to ARS 38-431.03 A3 and A4 regarding the professional engineering services agreement and the construction manager at risk construction services agreement for the Cave Creek City of Phoenix Interconnect project. Is there a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. We're now in executive session. Council meeting. We had some issues come up. The executive session is now closed and we're ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. Cynthia, would you lead us, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Well, I have one public announcement. That is that the Welcome to Cave Creek sign is back in service. Is Hal in the room? Stand up and take a bow, Hal. Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work on that. Are there other public announcements from council? I stole that one before anybody else did. We're at call to the public.
David Phelps.
Hi, Mayor and Council, David Phelps here. I just noted that in your packet tonight on the consent agenda that you have minutes of a meeting from 10/16 in which there's some bifurcation in the reporting wherein I supported the agenda item, but it appears that I did not. And I just wanted to make you aware of that so that you could handle it whatever way you want to handle it. And I would like to yield my remaining 235 to David Smith in case he wants to say something.
Did you get that, Teresa? Is where that is? Okay. Okay, thank you. Town manager report.
Mayor, members of the council, as I noted to the council in a memo, but I wanted to publicly say that the welcome sign, the Welcome to Cave Creek sign is up and back in its original location. We did ask the vendor to save the mold for that, and we're looking at a possible other location at the east end of town to see if we could add another welcome sign at another location. So I can't commit to it. We haven't looked at the space available, but if we do, we'll let council know and hopefully move forward with that. And then Brian, do you have the photos? I sent these to the mayor and council as well last week, but I thought for the public, I'd like to see the new restrooms at the rodeo grounds. So the next time we have the Cave Creek Rodeo and the public is in attendance, we'll have some real restrooms for folks to use. So that project is completed. So that's what I have today. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Mayor, quick question for Carrie. Carrie, I had a question in the past week regarding what do we do with how can I say this? A drunk guy on the sidewalk who can't take care of himself.
Well, in general, I can say that there are constitutional rights for people to be on public right of way. The one thing in Cave Creek that is unique to our town is not every pathway is on necessarily right of way. It could be an easement of someone else's property. So it depends on the location where someone may be considered perhaps loitering. But in this case, the police and or medics were called to a certain situation, but it depends what they're doing. If they're sleeping, they can check on them, do a well care, and either transport them, depends on the situation.
So, but there is a plan, a
There's
formalized.
always a plan, but if someone is just standing there doing something, they do have certain, it really depends on the situation and in Cave Creek, the location. So it's a case by case basis.
Thank you.
Is there a statute? Or do we have an ordinance on that?
There's a case out of San Francisco that we're wrestling with. And for example, you saw the homeless in Phoenix. There are limits on what you can do for people who are asleep in public places. They have the right to be there.
I
And
understand, I'm just curious, does the town have some policy on it?
oh, I don't know that.
Mr. Sims, Mayor, may I? Just everybody who's interested in this issue, go back and read ACLU versus Town of Cave Creek. You'll get quite an education.
Carrie, how prevalent is this problem in Cave Creek?
In the past 25 years, we've had, one or two or three. The town marshal has actually done a really good job helping people get to the services that they need, kind of rouse them out. And if they're able and willing to move on, that's, they do that. But he really has done a great job. And we have people that come back who are healthy and thankful that they were directed and received certain services, because usually there's something that has created that condition. But lately, there is probably nationwide, but certainly in Arizona and in Phoenix, it's a huge problem. But we have been monitoring it, and people do continue to move through town. And when they're in their washes on private property, they're not allowed to stay there. But as the attorney said, there was a situation in City of Phoenix, and we have seen some people move north. And so we're monitoring that. We had a couple other cases that weren't necessarily in the news, but the marshal has taken care of that, and they're not here any longer. They were on private property. So it really depends on where they are and what's going on.
Okay, first on the action items tonight is on the consent agenda. Number one is approval of the October 16th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes. Number two is approval of the November 6th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes. Number three is approval of the November 9th, 2023 special council strategic planning meeting minutes. And number four is approval of the November 16th, 2023 special council meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes that Mr. Phelps identified?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes 7-0. Tonight, under general agenda items, council discussion and appointment of 3 citizens to fill the vacancies on the planning commission. We have we're going to have each of the potential candidates come up and just give us a briefing of what they see as their role and the reason they'd like to be on the planning commission, maybe some of their qualifications. And we'll have the council have an opportunity to ask a question if they'd like to ask a question. Following the 5 people coming up, we have 5 candidates tonight. Then we will have public comment on this. So the first one in alphabetical order is Robert Anderson.
Hi, I'm Bob Anderson. Let me start by thanking the council for all of your support over the last 3 years. I do appreciate that. I think I can probably speak for many of the people in the room by saying how much I love this town. I really would, it's my desire to give of my time and my expertise and energy in preserving both its beauty and culture, while overseeing its growth, economic growth, in a manner that is responsibly sustainable of its fiscal viability through the next 3 years. I therefore respectfully request your support for my candidacy for Planning Commission for the next 3 years. Thank you. Questions?
I have a couple of questions. I'll let everybody else ask them. I have a couple of questions I'm going to ask every candidate, but what else? Do you support the general plan? Have you read and do you support the general plan?
I do support it. And in fact, I was one of the 2 people who wrote a favorable article upon its vote that was published in the election documents in favor of the general plan. So yes, I am for it.
Okay. The second one is there's presuming there is an item before the planning commission where there is a clear town code requiring a decision, but it's not a decision that you would agree with. Which would you do? Would you hold out for your opinion or would you follow the code?
I would follow the code. However, I would make comments to the fact that I might disagree with it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Paul, do you have-
Bob, hey, hello, Bob, I'm not done.
Sorry about that.
That's Paul.
I have really appreciated the work you've done in the past 3 years, and one of the specifics that I appreciate is your willingness to listen and your willingness to bring options to the conversation, and I just want you to hear that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
Next on the list is Steve Breckner, the current chair.
Hello, council members. Nice to see everybody. Can't believe 3 years went by that quickly. But it's been an adventure, a good learning process, and I hope I've been able to help the town to the extent of my abilities along the way. I continue to love Cave Creek, and I'm happy to serve again if you'll have me.
Questions from council?
I have a question. In the past 3 years, you've worked on a number of projects. Which one do you consider your most shining example?
Probably Hidden Canyon.
And why
That
is
was a good
that?
one. You know, there was a couple other recommendations that we had regarding, site plan reviews and stuff like that never got realized. But I thought that was a good transaction for the benefit of the town, and I think the town benefited from it, and a good result was obtained.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the same 2 questions. Do you support the general plan?
Yeah, I believe in the general plan. I think it's good for the town. It's a guiding principle for us. So, yeah.
Okay, the second is this hypothetical, where there's an issue where there's a clear code responsibility to act, but that you disagree with it. Do you act in accordance with your preferences or with what the code says?
I'm a firm believer in the code. Yeah, so we have to follow it. It's not an option. If we have problems with the code, then we need to go and look at the code and make changes to the code. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Ms.
Mr.
Smith.
Breckner, before you leave, well, I had a good question formulated for you. I'll be darned, but I just forget it as I'm having one of those days. In your position as your chairman of the planning commission and what kind of issues you run into with the makeup of the commission when you're dealing with people who have a NIMBY attitude? Because I know that there's some of that that goes on, and that is a concern of mine. We've removed people for that purpose in the past, or that reason.
Can you clarify NIMBY?
Not in my backyard.
Okay. Yeah, for me, those have been challenging, because I think everybody on the commission is well-intended. Everybody loves the town and so on. So navigating those is kind of like an educational process that hopefully works. But I find that oftentimes, while it can be somewhat of a time-consuming obstacle, oftentimes it's not the majority, leading to the majority of the votes for that I feel might be correct on a particular issue. But it's just, I would say the minority.
And have you in your service always looked at the overall town, at the town as a whole?
Yes,
Yeah.
so.
I've observed that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have certain goals. I tend to try and have a global perspective on things while also taking a look at what does the code say? What are we required to do? What are the rights of an applicant? What are the issues at hand? It's just the nature of the beast for my entire career with everything I've done. So I try to apply the same principles in my role on the planning commission as well.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'm gonna have to have help. Gregory, oh, would you step up? And the next thing is I'm going to ask you to pronounce very slowly your last name.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Greg Malasky.
Greg.
I know that you see the CH there, but you don't see.
One more time.
Malasky.
Malasky. Okay.
Malasky.
Okay. We never would have figured that out.
You wouldn't have been the only one.
Well, welcome. We're glad to see you here, and
Thank you.
you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for having me today. A little bit about me and my background and why I want to join the city planning committee. I'm a Air Force veteran. I have 15 years of aerospace manufacturing experience, but for the last 7 years, I've worked for the state of Arizona, serving the citizens of Arizona. I've worked in many different state agencies, and now I want to take what I've been able to do for the state of Arizona and the citizens and bring it locally to the town of Cave Creek. And so just like everybody else that's up here today, I love living in the town of Cave Creek. I want to make sure that we stay towards there. We make sure that our future direction and the resources that we have are stable and secure for future and potential growth.
Okay, questions?
I mean, I'll go ahead and ask the same one I asked before. Would you, as a member of the planning commission, would you able to look at the town as a whole as opposed to effects of on a single neighborhood with the project?
I believe I could, yes.
Other members of council? I'll ask you my same two questions. Do you support the general plan?
I do, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here tonight.
Great. And my hypothetical keeps changing a little bit, but it's really the same. I can't remember the exact wording, but if there's an issue where there's a clear code responsibility to act, but you disagree with it, do you act upon your disagreement or do you act according to the code?
Mayor, city council members, I'm held accountable every day to the Arizona revised state statutes and processes and procedures. And I follow those processes and procedures, whether I agree with them or not, because that's what Arizona is about.
Thank you very much. And we're glad to see you.
Thank you.
Robert King. Welcome.
Council, thanks for having me here tonight. I'm Robert King. I'm not a current member of the Planning Commission, nor have I ever been on a planning commission. So I'm new to the Cave Creek process that takes place on that commission. However, I do have a plethora of experience on the private sector side, I guess opposite in multiple states, across the west over the last 45 years. So I think I could be an asset to the commission, and I could have a positive influence, I think, on the future of the town. And that's why I'm making an application.
Thank you. Questions from council?
I might as well ask again, would you have any issue voting favorably in something that negatively affected your neighborhood if it was good for the overall good of the town?
I think like the other members have said here, compliance, if the compliance has gray areas, I'd look for legal opinion on that before. But I wouldn't let my personal decisions affect the planning commission decision for the town. The general plan gives us a pretty good outline, and I think there's going to be reasons for the commission to have conversations and maybe answer some difficult questions along the way. But the questions of code compliance and whether or not I disagree personally with something that's a neighborhood condition, I wouldn't have that affect my process in the commission. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think you answered mine too.
And I have one. So Robert, how do you approach a problem? I mean, somebody brings an idea to you that's kind of got loose ends to it. How do you approach that?
Well, I've been on the development side of the business for my entire professional career, but usually you work through the weaknesses or omissions of those application processes prior to making your formal application to the town or city. And I think that the building department and the planning department here in Cave Creek do a pretty good job of initial review and redlining that will put potential applicants back to the drawing board if there's weaknesses in their application. I built a house here a couple, 3 years ago and had a really good relationship with the city regarding the permitting process. I thought it was as smooth and professional as any jurisdiction I worked in, and I've worked in a lot of jurisdictions over time in much larger communities than this. So maybe I didn't answer your question.
Oh, you did.
fully.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
Other questions from council? Thank you.
Okay.
Clayton Miller. Before you get started, did I hear right that you have a relative who's now on the Carefree Town Council?
I do, yeah. Father on over in Carefree.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. He's busy. So,
Well, the floor is yours for any
Yeah.
comment you'd like to make.
yeah, thanks. Good evening, council. Of course, my name's Clayton. I've been serving on the planning commission now for, this past year as a fill-in position. So I'd like to just, carry on, with that. Quickly for a little bit about me. Arizona native, grew up down the road here, so definitely have a passion for the desert and, this kind of lifestyle that we live over here. So as far as work, landscape architect, so everything, this is kind of up my alley. This is what I do. I read guidelines and zoning and code all day.
Clayton, is that microphone on?
Yeah, it's on. I'm probably just, and I'm losing my voice a little bit. So yeah, and I do projects, from residential up to commercial and, planned communities and everything like that. So, as far as a basis in the, the material that we review and all of these, cases, I don't know, comes easy to me, I suppose, but that's probably the heart of it. Carry on, but like to just continue serving.
Okay, questions from council?
Might as well go one more time. I missed the first one. Okay, any problem with approving something that's meets all the codes and regulations in your neighborhood that's going to negatively affect your neighborhood, but is good for the whole town?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that goes with Mayor Morris's comment as well. Just, you gotta be fair. I mean, that's like bottom line right there. I mean, that's the code right there. And I don't think it gets more reasonable than that. So if it's against, yeah, maybe, you don't like it, I suppose you can state that opinion, but, at the end of the day, I think you gotta be so far.
See in your resume, it says landscape architecture from ASU. So you're disappointed this year in the football team as I am.
I don't think they've been good for a while.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, no more. I can't comment now.
I'm good, thanks.
I'll ask the same two questions. Do you support the general plan?
Yes, of course. And gosh, it's been great working on the town core plan as well this past, recently. So it's been great.
The second one is the hypothetical where if an issue comes up where there is a clear code responsibility, but you disagree with that, which choice do you make? To follow the code or according to your own?
The code, of course, yeah.
The code, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Clayton. Okay, at this point, are there any more questions?
Well, I don't have a question, but I have a comment that I'd like to make before we get into the details of how we're gonna make the selection.
Well, we have more to go here.
Okay,
So hold that until we get to the,
I'm ready. I'll hold it.
okay. So at this point, we have public comment.
I have no one wishing to speak.
No public, well, Paul?
Let her rip. Huh?
Yeah, let her rip. Now's the time for comments.
All right, so what I'm gonna do here is just share with the audience the job of being a planning commissioner and with the council as well, because we're making a decision at a fairly significant intersection in the town's growth and maturity. So a planning commission is established pursuant to Arizona revised statutes. It is the planning agency for the town and has the powers necessary to fulfill its planning function. The commission shall advise the council regarding applications for amendments to the general plan, specific area plans, and this ordinance, and for development, including subdivisions. The duties are to hold public hearings when necessary or required by law, advise the council, initiate, hear, review, and make recommendations to the council regarding applications for amendments to the general plan or area-specific plans, to make recommendations to the council on all matters concerning or related to the creation of zoning ordinances, and to hear, review, and make recommendations to the council on all applications for development, including subdivisions, site plans, special use permits, and other permit or review processes as provided in the ordinance. And to confer and advise with other town, county, regional, state, or federal planning agency commissions. So this is a big decision we have about who we turn loose to help us, to guide us, to give us information and make recommendations as we serve the people of Cave Creek. Those are my comments.
Okay. Are there any other comments that you would like to make here before I go through my procedure that?
Well, I don't know if I want to go here or not, but historically, we have removed people in my tenure on the council from the planning commission for being way too interested in their own neighborhoods and believing that their one voice trumps other six whenever they go in to meet with staff. This is a unit that, while is responsible for reviewing projects and reviewing those things, should not negatively affect the future growth and the financial position of the town of Cave Creek. That's all I've got to say.
So,
I think those individuals who've come forward are fine examples of people who have looked to the community, are trying to do service to the community, whether or not they leave as newly appointed commissioners. I think we all have to appreciate that they have come before us and that they have volunteered their services.
I agree.
well, I echo the comments. This is a very talented group of potential commissioners. We had some of these selections where we had as many as 11 people. And it is probably the toughest decision I think that we make up here because it's our friends and neighbors. I say over and over that this town is run by volunteers. So the people up here are volunteers, just like everybody else. And of course, the planning commissions, it's a very important position, and it too is a volunteer position. At this point, we have a procedure that Teresa and I have been working on. In order to get to a motion, the only way that a planning commissioner is appointed is if there is a motion by council, a second, and then a vote that confirms that position, then that person is appointed to council. We've come up with a small procedure here regarding how to present how to nominate people for that, which motion becomes first, which candidate is considered. And so we have a ballot up here with each of your names on it. And I sent this out a week ago. I only heard one comment back. So we'll use this. The attorney's chuckling at me because last time I tried this, it was a disaster. So each of us will vote for 3 people. And then the town clerk will announce those votes. And the reason for that is that previously, people who were candidates felt like they weren't given an audience because someone would come up, someone make a motion, they're in, and hey, the meeting's over. So this is just to come up with an order of nomination. So the top voter, the top person getting the top number of votes from the 5, 6, 7 people on council, all of which we publicly announced, I'll ask for a motion on that particular individual. And we'll just go down by the number of votes. So the motions will be in order of the support that a candidate has based on what we've heard here tonight and the applications that have been made. And I just stopped here. My vice mayor's looking at me. Okay. Does council understand? Yep. Okay. So at this point, I would ask each council person to nominate their 3 candidates, and Teresa will pick those up, tabulate them, and then read them out. So you'll know who voted and for which candidates.
Yeah, just a check mark, Bob.
A check mark next to 3 names. Yes.
Thank you.
I already wrote yes.
Yes will work.
I'm a maverick.
Let's see. Okay, and our names are on here.
Yeah, names.
Councilmember Arterton, Robert Anderson, Robert King, and Clayton Miller. Councilmember Alcma, Robert Anderson, Robert King, and Clayton Miller. Councilmember McGuire, Steve Breckner, Gregory, sorry if I said your name wrong. Is it Mulaski?
Perfect.
Okay. And Clayton Miller. Mayor Morris, Steve Breckner, Gregory Mulaski, Clayton Miller. Vice Mayor Ray, Steve Breckner, Greg Mulaski, Clayton Miller. Councilmember Bunch, Steve Breckner, Gregory Mulaski, and Clayton Miller. Councilmember Rhodes, Robert Anderson, Robert King, and Clayton Miller. I have 7 for Clayton Miller, 5 for Steve Bruckner, and Robert Anderson, Greg Mulaski, and Robert King are tied at 3.
Okay, 7 for King, 5 for, 7 for Miller. Okay.
Yep.
What's the second? Who's
5
second?
for Bruckner,
5 for Beckner. What's third?
and then Robert Anderson, Greg Mulaski, and Robert King are tied at 3.
How about Greg Mikulski?
They're tied, a second, I'll go back through. Robert Anderson.
I have different numbers.
Okay.
I've got 7 for Miller, 4 for Breckner, 4 for Mikulski, 3 for Anderson, 3 for King.
Okay, one moment, please. Robert
Confirm
Anderson,
that, please.
Add up to 21.
King.
That's a good way.
My apologies, you are correct. So 4 for Steve Bruckner and 4 for Greg.
Okay, so the order of motion that I will ask for is Clayton Miller first. Is there a motion to nominate Clayton Miller?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We'll have a voice vote. All those in favor of Clayton Miller, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, Clayton. You're appointed 7-0. The next one on the list is Steve Breckner with 4 votes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct? Okay. So is there a motion? Does someone want to make a motion then to make a motion to appoint Steve Breckner to the Planning Commission?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alberton,
No.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcamo,
No.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
No.
Vice Mayor Ray,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Yes. So Steve Breckner is appointed for 3. Is there a motion to appoint Greg Mikulski? Somehow I don't think it was perfect, but sorry, Greg. Is there a motion to appoint Greg to the,
I move to appoint Greg.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we had the 7-0. Well, so we have the 3. So Clayton Miller, Steve Breckner, and Greg Mikulski are now appointed to the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation and update on local landmarks by Cape Creek Museum Executive Director Evelyn Johnson. No actions to be taken, but welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We at the museum are so excited to have been a partner of the local. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Local landmarks. We've had the privilege of working with Luke and staff in the past. And we're excited to take the next step and be the cheerleader as well as the organizing force behind it. So since the museum, it's a perfect partnership since the museum is your culture keeper. And we have the privilege of telling your stories and our stories on a daily basis. One might ask, well, who is Cave Creek? And I would have to answer you and I, the early settlers. I guess I don't count though, because I live in Carefree. So I don't guess I count. Our
Honorary
miners,
citizen.
I'm sorry?
An honorary citizen.
Thank you. Our miners, our early homesteaders, characters like Catherine Jones, our Jack Cartwright, as far as that goes. And we get to tell those stories. They're colorful, they're triumphant, and they're trying. But we get to know those people and what's ahead of us. History matters because it gives us a sense of stability, a sense of memory, a sense of belonging. A town that doesn't have a history really doesn't know which way it's going. It doesn't have a direction. And I like to say it doesn't have a soul. Because without that history, it's empty. So our history is very important to us. There's a lot of details to work out. We have met with staff and we've gotten the ball rolling. We anticipate a wonderful time working together and revitalizing and giving local landmarks the boost that it deserves for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Any questions for Evelyn?
Thank you for all your hard work, Evelyn.
And we're a vibrant town. We're an interesting place to live, visit. We're happily quirky. And the characters who live here are seriously committed to this place. And thanks for that connection.
Welcome. My pleasure.
And Evelyn, I want to compliment you on your leadership for many, many years at the museum. Museum is one of the treasures in town. And I'm just pleased that you're taking this over. And I know you've got with your experience and the organization of another group of volunteers behind you, that it's just going to be fabulous and keep getting better and better. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's my pleasure.
Mayor, and I for one don't want to see any of us with a plaque around our necks. So,
I promise you that won't happen.
okay, thank you.
You may have a name tag.
I think they have to be permanently attached, don't they?
Next on the agenda tonight, the council discussion and approval of second reading of ordinance 2023-06. An ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek Town Code Title V, Public Works, Chapter 52, Water, Sections 52.031, Waste of Water, failure of customer to make repairs to pipes, valves, and fixture, 52.406, rates and charges for water service in the combined Cave Creek and Desert Hills service areas established, 52.501, drought management response procedure, 52.999, penalty, and town code title Roman numeral 15, land usage, chapter 151, building regulations, section 151.15, public works code. Presented by the town attorney and utilities director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to point out that we have Michelle Van Queethen available on the, she's actually zoomed in available, as well as Bill Sims for this presentation tonight and second reading of the code changes. As I go through, I got a short presentation, but I'll point out that actually we just saw a little typo. So as we move forward with the, I'll point that a little bit later in the presentation, but as we move forward with the action, we'll ask the council actually make that correction. Oh, there we go. No, sorry. So I thought I'd take it, since it's been a while since we talked about this, I thought we should best just take a second just to go backwards a little bit and talk about the town's water resources. So the town does rely on Central Arizona Project water for most of our supplies in both in Cave Creek and our ability to supply water to Desert Hills. Desert Hills has a couple of active wells, but we rely on our what's referred to as our municipal and industrial water supplies. And our subcontracts, and actually our non-Indian agricultural subcontract, which is actually some cap water that we secured for Desert Hills not too long ago. But they're not as secure as we move forward. And I'll point out that, there's been a drought situation going on the Colorado River. So when we look at what we have available to the town, we have to be weary and thoughtful about that. In 2021, the town council adopted a water resource policy that actually looked at limiting growth or new water connections outside the town's municipal limits. And we also put a volumetric limit on new connections. So that was an amendment to a 2017 water resource policy the town put in place. So the town's been thinking about water resources for a long time and trying to manage that. We're also moving forward with a water recharge. For the last few years, we actually had the contracts in place and have the ability to actually start putting some of our unused centralized our project water in the ground for recharge to create long-term storage credits for the town. So that is actually a good benefit for us overall. But for water resources, we're doing good, but we have to be watchful of the near future. So, and that's one of the reasons we did the drought plan, the water shortage and drought plan. So what's changed? We're still in a drought condition in the Colorado River. There's some structural issues just with the allocations of the water. In 2021, there was actually the first tiered shortage on the Colorado River. How that impacted Cave Creek is actually impacted our non-Indian agricultural allocation, which we just had received. We got it for the first year, and the second year, they actually asked us to reduce it by 25%, the amount of water that we could take from that. But overall, the drought on the Colorado River is continuing, and there's some hard decision points moving forward. And with the town being so reliant on Colorado River water, we have to be very prudent about how we do with that. There's been some changes going on in our system overall. We have the disconnect to the Carefree customers, which while reducing the load on the system, they actually also took water resources with them with part of that disconnect. So that reduced the amount of water available, but it also reduced the number of customers that we need to provide to. The transfer of the municipal industrial water to Carefree has actually gone through. And we actually have an upcoming interconnect with the city of Phoenix. So just to remind everybody, the connection with the city of Phoenix isn't to get us new water resources. The IGA we have in place, intergovernmental agreement with the city of Phoenix, is for them to treat and deliver our cap water resources to us. So it basically provides us with a second physical way of accessing our water, instead of just having to go through our pipeline and our treatment plant. So in 2022, the town staff worked with town council to adopt a new water shortage and drought management plan. It was part of the package. So, and I was just looking at this last night. It was November. It's just too bad it wasn't November 22nd, because it would have been November 22nd, 2022, resolution 2022-22. But that would have been kind of fun if that had happened. But we had the council meeting on the 21st. So why we did that was because we wanted to be thoughtful of what we were doing with our water shortage planning. The town had adopted previously in Center Town Code that we are supposed to have a drought plan. The town wanted to go a little bit further and make something that's more specific to Cave Creek. So when the discussion was coming up that there was tier shortages on this Colorado River, the feedback we were getting is, how does that impact Cave Creek? Well, right now we're not using our full allocation. So we have been able to still recharge the unused portion of it. But as we look forward, as we're doing with our master planning, it does show that we have to be cautious, because there is an allocation of those future water resources or our existing water resources for future development. So where we look good now, we have to be cautious, because as the town grows into the allocation, as the developments that have access to that allocation use it up, that gets us into a situation. So what we came up with was a 5-tiered structure. So we're not directly tied back to the cap shortage, when the CAP issues shortages, but we did something specific to Cave Creek. And we came up with a stage 1 through 4 as listed there, a 5-level water supply shortage. We're always in stage 0, which is water smart. We live in a desert. We need to be smart about how we use our water. Stage 1 means, and water smart actually means there's some excess water available to recharge. As years continue, there's be less water available for us to recharge. So we might actually by natural growth in the town get to stage 1 as our natural growth, which is our natural state, which is water watch. So there's no excess water resources available. Stages 2 to 4 are more critical. That's when we will do a projection, an annual projection of what we anticipate the water demands for the system to be the upcoming fiscal year, present to council. And if we think that that's going to exceed the supplies, we then hit into stage 2, 3, and 4. And you can see the percentages from 1 to 25% of inability to supply the water that were anticipated. We're supposed to do that, I think, by the plan by October. I didn't do that yet formally this year, so we're actually still in stage 0, Water Smart. We're not projecting to have our demands below supplies, so we still have water available to recharge. Within the plan, we actually did list measures to reduce demands and to match the water supplies. We did that prudently. But as I move forward, we gave a sort of a checklist for future councils, this council and future councils to look at. And that brings us towards the process we're in right now. So on June 19th, taking a step back, we actually looked at, by adopting the drought management plan, we also saw there were some holes in the town code that would keep us from enforcing some of the standards as we move forward, as we get into a situation of a shortage where we do not have the supplies available to meet the expected demands. So what we started is the process to look at what town code amendments are required to give the council and future staff the ability to enforce this moving forward. So on June 19th, we brought those recommendations forward. Again, 4 specific town code changes that are relative to the water and drought management plan. The 5th one was actually just more of a cleanup. It actually was just a code revision. It was a reference to the wrong Maricopa County Association of Government standards. So we thought while we're here, we'd clean that up. So we had the first, we presented the draft on the 19th, June 19th, July 17th, we brought the ordinance forward as the first reading. Since it is a town code change, it does require 2 readings. And after that 17th meeting, we actually did receive some public comments. So what we had heard is at our stage 2 level, or stage 3, sorry, when we're in a situation of having reduced water, more expected demands higher than our supplies, that we had listed one specific thing, because we're getting into a situation where we're not just voluntarily asking people to reduce their water consumption. We actually now have to get to a situation where we have to enforce and have involuntary issues. And we took the language directly from the water shortage and drought management plan, and specifically the section at stage 3, we listed, that the limitations on people to actually fill their pools. And what we heard that was going too far. When we looked at the actual text that was written, this is actually, well, 2 things. One is the text that's in your package, and that's the one error that we did find. That was probably my mess up when we sent it forward. So the text should have read, for 52501, section A5, at the last sentence should prohibiting filling public and private swimming pools, and other outdoor water usage. So that was what the text revision that we proposed. And when we actually read the body of the text, we say it's not a requirement the town council actually adopt what's listed in the town code, but we thought it was prudent to have that in town code. The actual requirements that will be put in place are required to actually be adopted by council by resolution. So what's in town code is just a suggestion. But when we get to those specific levels of shortages, the town actually has to adopt a resolution to be specific. So we thought, we did listen, we did hear the concerns. Again, there was a thought that, well, why can't we fill the swimming pools, which in some cases could be a very expensive piece of infrastructure someone has actually paid for to have in their yard, rather than say limit other outdoor usage like equestrian, people who want to have horses. When we read the text, we don't read that into it. It actually has to go forward to council. So we're just providing a recommendations based on the drought plan in code, but it's not prescriptive. So we thought that it was covered and adequate. That's why when we move forward with the second reading, we have suggested not to strike that text out, because it's not prescriptive.
So-
but I want to make sure, we have to make this into a motion at some point.
Mhm.
So what exact language in 50, I guess you're talking about 52.501, section 5?
Yes.
And what specific words in there should be struck out,
So it should be added.
added?
So after prohibiting ornamental water fountains, semicolon, prohibiting filling public and private swimming pools, semicolon, other outdoor water usage, comma, and installation of flow restrictors on water service lines to customers who have had repeat violations. So we were suggesting adding the text other outdoor water use. Mr. Sims brought to my attention, and it must be my mistake that that was the revision we had suggested. It didn't make it into the package. So I believe that's probably my error in sending the information over to Teresa.
Okay.
But if you actually read the body of the text, it's not prescriptive. Each it says, well, let me just read it. So the water shortage drought management plan, and this is for a stage 3, as well. Involuntary remedial measure stage 3, the water shortage drought management plan. This is when we anticipate that supplies are going to be 7 to 25% below what our expected demands are. So we're in a critical situation at this point. And that's stage 3 and stage 4. The water shortage drought management plan shall include voluntary and involuntary measures implemented under stage 1, 2, and 3, and the involuntary measures under stage 3 as set forth in the water shortage and drought management plan.
Can you stop a minute?
Okay.
Because you said stages 1, 2, and 3, and the copy reads stages 0, 1, and 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, 0, 1, and 2, and
And
involuntary
also-
measures under stage 3.
Text up on the screen.
Yeah,
so
probably
that
easier.
Audience members could also see it.
You know where that is, Brian?
Well, there's Michelle out there.
Yeah.
You can keep going until he gets it on.
Yeah, so as I correct myself, so yeah, under stage 0, 1, 2, and 3, and involuntary measures as under stage 3 as set forth in the water shortage drought master plan that are further adopted by a resolution of the town council, such as, but not limited to. And then we go into the list of potential things. So again, it's the language as further adopted by resolution and not, and such as and not limited to is where we think that what we've put in there is matching the drought, water shortage and drought master plan, but it does not hold this council or future councils to the specific usages that we've identified. They just provide sort of a recommendation. We thought it was good to have that in code because it does mirror what's in the water shortage and drought management plan. So you don't have to go back to the other document.
So then, Sean, for clarification, when and if this time ever arises,
Mhm.
it would be then that you would bring a recommendation forward to the council to act upon one of these options or more.
Correct. The way we wrote it is that we monitor it, pretty much continuously as far as our demands and our supply availability. And we wrote prescriptively in the water shortage and drought
Number 5,
master
right.
plan that we would, by the, I think it was October, we would come back to council and give our projection moving forward. And the October date is when we usually hear from the Central Arizona Project of the availability of the subcontract water for the next year. So we will know by then if there's going to be a shortage, if they're going to cut the allocation. So at that time, I'd be coming forward to council or whoever staff member would come forward to council and then say, we have a situation. We anticipate that with the current demands and our projected growth in the system, that we have a shortage situation and start that discussion and then provide a recommendation that would have to be adopted by resolution specifically. So we would obviously as staff provide our recommendation, but it's up to council to actually adopt that. And then we'd move forward and then we as staff would implement that. So again, it's going to be a two-way conversation and it'll have to be a two-way conversation, especially again, if we get into our stage 2, 3, and 4 as defined. We are in a situation we anticipate demands will be higher than our available supplies. That's critical for us to try and figure out a solution to that. So it's going to be something that we don't anticipate getting into immediately, and we'll probably get into it. But that's something that we wanted to make sure was in code to allow us to enforce it moving forward, because we don't have the best crystal ball. We can see what's going on overall, the Colorado River supplies are looking good. Discussions are looking good, but that could very quickly change. And since we have so much of our water supplies are tied to the Colorado River allocation, we have to be mindful of that.
I have another question.
Yes.
Clarification again. In the very second to the last sentence in number 5, prohibiting filling public and private swimming pools. Are you referring to new pools or existing pools that, just have water meters that just, enhance the water level?
Good question, Mayor and Vice Mayor. That is the thought of that's people who have existing swimming pools, because swimming pools by nature will have evaporation where you will lose water. And if we're in a situation where we have a shortage, the thought would be that's one place someone could save their water instead of using it for domestic interior use. Then that's sort of an amenity outside. That's why the text that we had suggested was right after that, prohibiting public and private swimming pools was going to be semicolon and other outdoor water usages to make it more broad. And again, it's not specifically prescriptive the way the code is written. It's actually just giving recommendations, which again mirror the water shortage and drought management plan.
I understand that, but these
Yeah.
are questions pertaining to, comments that we've all received.
Yeah.
What about people who want to put a pool cover on that would eliminate or reduce at least evaporation?
Well, again, there's chemical things you can do to help reduce that. There's covers, and my recommendation would be that we could have that discussion if we're in that situation as council. Again, it's not prescriptive the way we've written it in code. We would bring that forward as recommendations. And the one good thing about the program we're doing to update the town's water meters is that we'll have a better understanding of typical water usages and where we could potentially look to help people be more informed about where the water is going on their properties and how to save water. So again, the intent wasn't to be 100% prescriptive with what's in town code. It's just providing some recommendations that would have to have a discussion moving forward with. Again, a pool could be a very expensive piece of land infrastructure. Someone spent, you can spend $100,000 on a really nice pool, and that's, when it has to go dry, then there's some potential risk there. We had the conversation with Bill and Michelle, was some of that get transferred back to us, but if we're in a situation that we can't provide potable water to customers, we're in a situation that we're short 25% on our water supplies. It's a very drastic situation we're into, and that's why we wanted to have this language and the ability to move forward with that. We don't want to wait till we're in that situation to actually do these code amendments. We want to do it now, forward thinking that hopefully, knock on wood, we never get to that situation, but we have to have we wanted to make sure that we had those that authority in place and the process in place with the town council.
This pertains just to people who are on town water, correct?
This actually pertains to all of our water customers.
People who are on the town's.
Yes, the town water, so all of our water customers, town water.
I want to clarify that because I had a couple of people that asked questions, and for all intents and purposes, if you have a well, the way that state law treats you for all intents and purposes, you're your own water company. I mean, you can think of it that way.
Yeah. You're
So
correct.
Just to be clear, this ordinance pertains only to people on town water.
Mayor, Sean, I'm looking online, it kind of indicates that a pool cover can actually reduce evaporation up to 95%, which is pretty darn incredible. It would seem to me that we ought to get that information out to the public now, so they're not using as much water to begin with. Of course, that hurts our bottom line, but that's another story altogether.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members, we really want to use term ratchet up and be more informative to all of our customers now. That's part of the water smart that we're trying to be in now. We want to actually do more outreach to our citizens and our customers. So one of the things is why we brought forward the change from the Water Advisory Committee to the Utility Advisory Committee is to help get the citizen group to help us out with that outreach. But we do want to spend more time in looking at just the documentation that we have overall and be able to educate people a lot more on things like pool covers. Although, will someone want to use a pool cover? Most of the evaporation occurs in the summer. If you put a pool cover on, you're going to have very warm water. So,
Yeah.
there's a give and take on it, but it's just make people more cautious of what they're doing and conscious of what they're doing. So again, we can preserve the town's finite water resources.
The added benefit, that evaporation concentrates the calcium in the water, requiring them to change. My pool's too thick to swim in and too thin to plow.
Other questions from council? Seeing
Yeah, we do
none.
have Michelle online, so if you want to, she helped
Okay.
us craft it with Bill.
Michelle, do you want to weigh in on anything?
I think the only thing I'd add, and you've probably heard this before, was that, we looked at ways that the city could overall save water when we came up with the list. And what we noticed is that Cave Creek is primarily residential. And so unfortunately, if you have a shortage, that's where you need to cut. So those are going to be some hard discussions if you ever get to those stages, but that's kind of why we're looking at those things pretty early in the shortage process.
For this project.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor and Council, we looked, I think, a total well, when we developed the drought plan, we actually looked, I think, 10 different other drought plans to make something specific. And then through the water shortage and drought plan, when we came up with the stages, then it's a matter of just implementing, but we did look at other town codes and what was out there. So we tried to mirror some other local municipalities.
How would you say we rate in comparison?
When we get Michelle on, I think, she'll nod. I think.
Yours is much better, frankly, than some of the big cities because they don't have to work as hard right now on their drought plans. I think yours is better.
Shortage situation, it allows council to adopt, instead of having to go through a rate study, the town code change now allows us to do things like add water surcharges and stuff like that to help us do things like fund more outreach and watching of people's water usages. So that's built into town code now. So we have the tools and the toolbox to move forward to help better manage the town's water resources if there are structural issues where we anticipate that there's shortages in our supplies being able to meet demands. So I think
And one thing that I also think would be beneficial to this community, the Central Arizona Project has a wonderful website. And every quarter they produce information on the status of the Colorado River. So if people are concerned, and I'm sure we are, a lot of us in this community, about what the projections look like going forward, we should produce that information on our website. So it's accessible to everybody to know what the status of the Colorado River is.
But I do have a question for you, Sean. The surcharges, that would have to come back to the council for approval?
yes,
Okay.
all that has to come back to council, and again, they have to adopt it specifically by resolution. So we would, as staff, recommend what it's just allows for that. So the actual amounts and all that would have to be something we have to bring forward as a
I just want to make
recommendation.
sure everybody understands
Yeah.
that we're not going to implement it willy-nilly, that
No.
it comes back to the council
Everything has to
and
come back.
they'll have the opportunity to comment on it.
Yeah, it'll be a public meeting, council has to adopt it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And to that point, Sean and maybe Bill, in the document here on page 8 under chain of command, is there any need to take on line 3, the town council will and make that shall? That we are firmly obligated to consult with the utilities director and so forth, or is that not helpful wordsmithing? I mean, it says we will consult, which means the intention, but would we not want to require ourselves to first have a meeting? I'm sorry, page 8. Chain of command. Line 3.
Well, you're in the policy though, aren't you?
Well, or we could get that put somewhere, but what's the enforcement or what's the guarantee that the council
We can't find
would be
it here with
required?
us.
Oh, you can't see.
I think he's referencing the
Under drought declarations
the
and
drought-
plan administration.
the drought plan, not the town code.
Oh, yeah. Page 86 of 121 for the whole packet.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The chain of command.
So
We have will, which means the intention, but should we say shall or we're self-obligating?
Is there
I thought will was stronger than shall.
No.
shall is mandatory.
Oh,
So just for education, so that is in the water shortage and drought management plan. So I'm trying to see where we actually have that mirrored in the ordinance that we presented, which is the actual changes to town
Yeah,
code.
I think the word you want to use is shall, because it's definitive and it requires the council to take action.
And I would ask council if there's a differentiation.
So tonight, though, we're dealing with code. Is that correct? The draft, what we're talking about now, the will and shall was approved some time ago. And so it's not on the agenda tonight.
Correct. We just
is that
attached
correct?
it as Mayor and Council, we attached the adopted water policy as a backup, but it was adopted by resolution at the end of 2022. So that's not on the agenda. What's on the agenda tonight is ordinance number 2023-06 and the text in there.
So Bill, can we make a change to something that to the drought management plan? When
Not on the agenda. But are we saying, here's the town manager will identify when they get shall? Well, given that the career limiting factor of the town manager, I mean, it truly. You have absolutely both. I mean, whether he or she wants to argue that it thinks of shall and will. I think you've lost a lot of relationship, but I'm not on the agenda for this.
So if you feel strongly enough, we'll put that on the future agenda change.
I guess my point is, I can't, you're about to select a new manager. I can't believe you and your manager will have a disagreement about what we shall.
Oh.
If you do, you have bigger problems.
So essentially, you're saying that both words really
Well,
are likely.
There are cases where lawyers will argue shall is more. I agree
Lawyers
with you,
argue about
is more than will, but I guess my point is. You are negotiating with your manager as to whether he or she will or shall. And I guess if you're getting to that point, you probably made the wrong choice in management.
That can happen.
Well said.
Brian, do we have any progress in getting Michelle online?
Fortunately not.
Oh,
Does she have a whiteboard?
Uh,
Well,
yeah, why don't you put her on speaker?
can you do that, Brian? If I give you your phone number, can we call her in?
Wow.
I hear something.
Are you
You
on?
hear me? Yay, okay.
Okay.
What a team.
Did you have anything to add to what we've been talking about, Michelle?
No, I think these are good changes. There are obviously more improvements to be made over time as the town gains experience with these issues. So there's always the opportunity to make them better later.
Michelle, one of the questions was about other towns' procedures that were consulted. Can you give us a flavor of where we stand in the nature of all these plans that towns have adopted?
I am invested in this plan, but I think your plan is a lot better than a lot of the towns in the area because they just sort of all copied each other, I think, and just to get the requirement done, and they weren't serious about what it actually means. They have stages, but they're tied to the CAP shortages, not their personal situation. There are some of them that also have the surcharge, though you're not alone in that design. But I think yours is more tailored to your water supply requirements, which I think I noted this, and I don't know if you heard me, but unfortunately, the town is almost all residential water usage. So we had to tailor the potential remedies to that usage. We can't say, you know, all large users are going to cut their air conditioning cooling because you just don't have that many users like that. So it's good for Cave Creek, I think.
Okay, any last questions from council?
Well, I do think we need to thank Michelle and to thank Sean for bringing forward ideas that are very specific to the needs of the community.
Okay, there is public comment on this.
David Smith.
That was out of order, sorry.
Mayor, council. Let me preface this by saying that I had a meeting with the utility director and the town water attorney a couple of months ago. And the tone tonight from the utility director was somewhat different from the tone at the meeting that I had with them at that time. Unfortunately, what I wrote to deliver tonight was not based on any comments that Sean has made tonight. So it might be a little stronger, maybe than would be expected. Okay. And by the way, thank you for allowing me to have a little time to say something. Other than discussing hydrants and standpipes, the rest of the purpose of ordinance 2023-06 is to respond to limitations to access of water from the Central Arizona project. The response plan is almost entirely based on higher charges for water, or what used to be called cherry picking or gathering low-hanging fruit. Higher water rates obviously favor the affluent, and cherry picking enables the town to selectively pick among non-domestic water uses while ignoring others. One of the options generally considered acceptable, e.g. the cost of cigarettes, which today is many times what it was years ago, and it drove down the utilization of cigarettes by people. Establishing laws or regulations on cherry-picked items or actions is generally much less acceptable. I know for a fact from firsthand experience that regulations based on cherry picking are considered discriminatory by the justice system. Picking pool owners over other non-domestic water uses is certainly of this nature. Finally, once you get past the higher charges for water, which favor the affluent, you need to consider the true meaning of the words arbitrary and capricious. Speed limits, which are certainly arbitrary, are acceptable because they're not capricious. Whereas developing a law to limit the use of water when there are no use standards against which to measure excessive use is wholly capricious. Such laws are not generally appreciated by the justice system. I was told in a meeting with the utility director and water attorney that known present-day very high water users would not be expected to accept the same kind of quantity limits that standards that are being applied to me. It couldn't be clearer that the time-honored concept of equal justice before the law was not to be part of this ordinance. Finally, after saying finally before, I don't like the idea of taking the volition for correction out of the hands of the homeowners and putting it totally into the hands of the utility director. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
I mean, when did I go to court? Because get my hand slapped on you? Okay, I'll tell you about that sometime.
David Phelps.
David Phelps, Cave Creek resident. I would prefer, if we're going to have the 25% reduction, that the user to make the decision on where their water reduction comes. If they choose to fill their pool, that's their decision. If they want to let their plants go without water, that's their decision. If they decide to don't flush their toilet as often, that's their decision. I think we have high enough water usages on average with this 10,000 gallon average that we seem to be having with our water company, that we could probably have a 25% reduction and still survive just fine. I do find it a little bit ironic that if we take about the 2,200 acre feet that we are entitled with the CAP M&I water, and you deduct your 25%, you're at about 550 acre foot reduction during a 25% shutdown, or excuse me, curtailment. And with the growth of Desert Hills, had we not bought Desert Hills, we might have been just fine. but we couldn't see that then, but we can see it now. And so had we not bought Desert Hills back when we had to have it, we might be just fine with a 25% reduction with the allocation that we already own. But now we're not. So good work, Sean and Michelle, and I'm glad I'm not in your seat. All right, thank you.
No additional speakers.
Okay, at this point then, we are looking for a motion to adopt, and if the staff has recommended that we modify. Let me go ahead and make it, because I've got it written out here and I can probably do it faster. Motion to approve second reading of ordinance 2023-06, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek Town Code, Title 5, Public Works, Chapter 52, Water, Sections 52.031, Waste of Water, failure of customer to make repairs to pipes, valves, and fixtures, 52.406, rates and charges for water service in the combined Cave Creek and Desert Hills service areas established, 52.501, drought management response procedure, 52.999, penalty and town code title 15, land usage, chapter 151, building regulations, section 151.15, public works code, and changing section 52.501, A5, and after the word pools, the phrase other outdoor water usages, end quote, and before the word and. Is there a second?
Second.
This is not financial, so we can do this. We have a second. Yeah, second. So I made the motion. I'm gonna so I had first call on the comments, and my comments starting with is voluntary methods have been an abject failure everywhere that I've seen them applied, California being the most recent case. And the operative word here is emergency. We're not, you're not going to do any more than is necessary to have water. You'd rather have water to drink than to put in your pool or water your lawn or landscaping or features. So it's a lot of bad choices, and you're trying to make the best of a lot of bad choices, making lemonade out of lemons. So all this is doing is giving future councils, in the unlikely event that one of these is triggered, and there are many things that could trigger it, an airplane crashing on the Central Arizona Project Canal. I imagine they have emergency procedures that are secret, just like ours are secret. But it is a real risk. There's just one canal that supports all of Central Arizona. And so any rational government that is interested in the health and welfare of their citizens is going to have something like this. And I just mentioned that, you know, we've been doing water banking and WAC, and we're doing conservation. We're working on a master plan right now. We've had aquifer geologists looking at doing wells or doing storage. We're putting a new metering system into town so that we can identify and help people conserve water. We're looking at recharging treated water. And we stopped new water development in Desert Hills. So this is one tiny piece of a huge comprehensive plan to protect the economic well-being and the health and safety of this town. If it's needed, and it may never be needed. So I'm going to vote yes on it.
In 1982, oh my gosh, I'm old. Fished the first U.S. Open bass tournament on Lake Mead. Fished in a place called Grand Wash. The worst case last year, prior to our last winter, prior to our good water year this year, it was somewhere between 8 and 12 miles from Grand Wash to the water level of the lake in Lake Mead. This is not something we're choosing to do. If we have to get to these measures down the road, you got a lot more to worry about than loss of diminution of value of your pool than you do anything else. Your property is going to be darn near worthless for anybody that wants to come in and buy something when they're worried about not having any water to drink. So these are measures that we need to take a look at, and for the God forbid, awful, awful future that could happen if we continue to have a drought and not have good water years in the Colorado River watershed.
And I think it's important to remind our community that Cape Creek is completely dependent on CAP water, except for well water residences, which are like 500, I think you mentioned, Bob. So, we only have one source of water, which is Colorado River water, which makes us different than many other communities. Phoenix and Scottsdale and Tempe and Chandler, they also have SRP. So we are dependent completely on one water supply, which makes us unique. And in the case of woulda, coulda, shoulda, I would have liked to have seen us bank our water 10 years ago. And that never happened. And it did in 2021, which was a huge accomplishment for this town. And we've been able to save some of our excess water, but we could have done that tenfold had we done that a dozen years ago. So, hindsight is 2020, but we are where we are, and this is where we are, and we have to be realistic about it. So I appreciate the fact that people are concerned about their swimming pools and their horses, but we only have a very limited water supply, and we live in a desert. So let's just accept it for what it is, and hopefully it will never have to be put into action.
Other comments from council? Mr. Bartley.
I have maintained that we really don't have a huge problem with water amount. What we have a problem with is with water management. And I would suggest that everyone take a careful look, as has Catherine through her experience with CAP, at the way that water is being managed in the state, because we can survive on less than we've got, but we need to take a look statewide at issues of water management. Also, I would note that in 2026, the Colorado River Compact, I think the conditions of the compact will change, and the states need to get together in order to decide how to deal with water. It's going to be a really tough issue because there are conflicting legal issues here that are going to make it difficult among the states. But hopefully we can come up with a new way among the states of finding a more acceptable way of dealing with our water. Catherine, do you want to comment on any?
I don't know if the Colorado River Compact will be renegotiated. Some people think that is impossible. But the 7 states and 10 Indian tribes at a minimum are working on negotiations as we speak.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Yeah, I think there's some technological means that you can start taking a look at too, if this gets that bad. I know that that if you can meter the water very accurately, then you can also restrict how much water you're providing to a house per day. I mean, I'm not suggesting that, but that is something that you need to take a look at in the future.
I think that's in the document somewhere, isn't
is
it?
it?
Yeah. And I was thinking, I don't know anybody who would prefer that.
No, I mean, that's a horrible thing, but I mean, I also understand the diminution of value with the pools and things, and there's some things you can start doing today to save on that. Put covers on your pool.
Yeah. Seeing no further comments, I guess we're ready for a vote on the second reading. So at this point, I'd call for a vote. All those in favor of the second reading of this item signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it 7-0. The policy and the code changes are adopted. That is the last. Oh, I'm sorry. There is more on the agenda today.
Yeah.
My favorite part.
Talk fast, Sean.
Yeah,
He does anyway.
Quarterly utilities report.
John's working hard tonight.
All right. Hey, Mayor and Council, I do actually enjoy this, but it takes a lot of time to do. But it's to give you guys, yourself and the citizens an update on the utility systems overall. And I give a lot of credit to staff members, Ryan Hill in our office and other people who put this all together. It takes a lot of effort to put this together, but we're trying to change up a little bit, simplify some of the graphics to you overall, so I can go through it a little bit quicker. We look at our water demands here, and really the takeaway here is the trends. You can see the yellow is 2021 demands, 22 are yellow, are the blue, and 2023 are the red. What we saw is a dip in March, and we attribute that to actually that was the last large transition period for Carefree. We have a handful of customers still on the system, but they did a big transition of the area by Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road, which took off close to 300 accounts very quickly, and we saw a dip. But because the summer was so long and hot, we anticipated that our demands would stay low, but we actually saw it peak because of the summer. So people were using a lot more water. We attribute that to outdoor water use just because we had an exceptionally long and hot summertime. But again, this is something we watch, and this is the type of stuff that we would look for and try to generate trends to look at to balance against our supplies overall. This is a combination of a couple of different graphs you've seen before, which is trying to stack graph is showing where the delivered water goes through, and this is our CIP supplies. The orange, let me read this again, is let me see here. The blue on the top is actually our deliveries of water to the Rancho Mignona Golf Course. And then the red is actually what's going to Desert Hills. And then the orange is there are Cave Creek customers. And what we're doing with this is actually trying to show you difference between where we're sending the water in the monthly blocks, and then what our billing consumption. That's what the green line is showing us. So there's always a bit of a gap. We're trying to close that gap down. And we call that our non-revenue water. So at the beginning of this past year, we did something structurally changed, and we did that with the when we adopted the new water rates that in the past we would not attribute any of the system transmission and or treatment losses for the water sent to Desert Hills to them. The new adopted rates, that's actually something we built structurally into it. So we're starting to see that come down, where before Cave Creek, because we run two water systems, we actually had what I'd say was an artificially higher loss and non-revenue water number, which is a number that we actually give report on annually to ADWR. We're required to actually keep down to a certain threshold. It was showing that artificially high in Cave Creek water and then artificially low in Desert Hills water. So now we're structurally changing that. This is the first full year. We're down at 13% right now through this year. We think we're going to get down to close to 10% on Cave Creek water by the end of the year, which is what we're supposed to be at per the fifth management plan from Arizona Department of Water Resources. So good move here overall. We're lowering it. We are also seeing some improvements as we change out the water meters. And we spent some time just on our metering system overall to make sure that we can properly account for the water usage. Just noted there on the graph, you can see June and July, you'll see a dip down. When we first saw this, it didn't make sense. And we realized that actually that goes back to a billing period issue where June was a 35-day between billing cycles, and then July was actually only 23 days. And that goes back to when we read the meters, because we have a drive-by metering system, but being that most of our staff work before 10, it's a matter of fitting that in with holidays, et cetera. So one of the other advantages we're going to have when we change to the AMI automatic metering infrastructure is we won't be reliant on the schedules. We'll actually just be able to pull it out of the data set directly. So it'll be better attribute to a month, a true 30-day, 31-day period. So that was the anomaly we saw on that graph when we first saw it. This one is a repeat of the last one, but it's actually our Desert Hill system. Again, trying to show the water used by our customers versus our revenue water projection. So Desert Hills typically has been, the percentage has been more like 6 to 7%. You can see because at the beginning of February, we started charging the interconnect 5% treatment and transmission loss per the code to Desert Hills, what's going through the interconnect. That has creeped up a little bit, but it's balancing out the two systems, which we thought was more fair between the two systems overall. Again, you're seeing the same dip in June and July because of the billing cycle period, which again, first caught us back. Then we realized what it was. It was going back to when we pulled the information out of our billing system, there were different blocks of time. This is something we've been looking at, and this is overall, this is looking at what the water is coming up the pipeline. So we have 1 meter at the CAP turnout. We call it the CAP 1 station. And then when you follow the pipeline up, when it gets to the water treatment plant, there's a total of 5 different locations where it can be distributed to. So this summer, we actually spent some time trying to figure out, this has been one that's perplexed me since I've been here, trying to figure out why we had such a big gap. You're not seeing the results right now, but we did find one error, and it was actually at the water treatment plant. The volume of water that was being sent to the West Tech filter was being recorded by an insertion meter that's upstream in the pipeline. It's in a very bad location. We think that that was attributing to about a 200 gallon per minute of inaccuracy in the system. So we've spent some time this year. We've actually added some new meters at the water treatment plant. You'll probably see at the next quarterly report where we're going to start to close that gap down. There's always been a concern that we're sending more water up the pipeline that we're properly accounting for at the back end, that we're effectively making water, but I think we're closing that gap down. And again, it was about a 200 gallon a minute error. And what it was is that the 1 meter was reading high, and then sometime in a later date in the past, we actually had individual meters for the West Tech filters. Someone had calibrated those West Tech filters by a setting in our SCADA system to match the inaccurate meter. And it took us a lot of gyrations in trying to figure out that the math wasn't working, something wasn't wrong. And then finally our SCADA technician found it actually in the programming and actually corrected it. So we're getting a 200 gallon per minute, which is our peak day flows. We can move about 2,100 gallons a minute up the pipeline. We close that gap significantly. So again, the next quarter will get better. So all goes back to water accounting. We want to make sure we know where the water's going. We do want to make some other improvements. We tried to put a temporary meter on the CAP pipeline in the CAP 2 vault. It wasn't successful, so we're looking at another solution. We actually have to go to CAP 3 this year, the CAP 3 booster station, and do some re-weld on piping fitting. So we might weld on a new fitting to allow us to do an insertion meter at CAP 3 and see if that gives us more accurate reading. We do have some concerns about the CAP 1 meter. That's going to require a full change out of that meter, which requires taking the pipeline down and actually cutting in what's called a magnetic flow meter. It's a very invasive project. It's probably going to require the pipeline to be down for several days. I don't think we can do that. Well, I know we can't do that until we have the City of Phoenix interconnect up, when we can take the pipeline out of service. But that's something we're working towards, but we're thinking there might be another improvement we can do before the interconnect site is built. But we're making progress. So and it was nice to, I hate to say nice, but we did find an error in the coding of the SCADA system. So sometimes these things are embedded deep and we're having to go through and I hate to say dig them out. So recently we've had some, our water loss is something that we take very seriously. We've asked our customers to conserve more water. We're trying to react to that by being very judicious with the town's water usage. So we do need to, our system has a lot of long dead end lines. So we have to flush the system just to keep the water fresh because we don't have enough usage in that. But occasionally we do have issues. This is a line that since I've been here 4.5 years, we've had at least 3 major breaks on. In this capital program before, where our focus has been on the 8-inch line that crosses Cave Creek Wash. There's actually a 6-inch line that crosses Cave Creek Wash, which goes to the north to the Roya Este area, that we've had 3 large breaks. The pipeline where it's broken here in the picture is about 15 feet deep. We actually do not typically, one time it broke at the top of the bank. We saw that one fairly quickly. And the 2 times it's broken down here, we suspect it could have taken several weeks before we even see it because it's being absorbed into the wash. So this is a new project that we're actually going to move forward and request in the CIP is to do a lining of this crossing. We're just potentially losing a lot of water, and that shows up on this graphic, which is our estimate of water losses in our flushing operations. So the red is our hydrant flushing. We have to do hydrant flushing. That moves the water out of the system. We do that for compliance. The orange is the lost water from the leak. Looking back at historical records for the months of June, we anticipate we might have lost up to 4 million gallons when that 6-inch line broke. And it was actually running for a while before we found it. So we're looking at other options to try and find it. Our ultimate goal is next year to do a lining project where we can line through it so we don't have to deal with breaks on that line anymore. Again, we just do not see it when it breaks, when it's 15 feet deep in the gravelly, sandy soils of Cave Creek Wash. So well, it's something we think we need to, the staff have made great strides in trying to keep our water consumption down from our losses, but that's one line that we have to address. Switching over to our wastewater flows. Again, starting off with just the overall, what you're seeing is our flow trends. Unlike the water side, I've got 4 years of trends on this, and you can see the only anomaly on this one is our 2020 flow, and we call it the COVID flow. So when COVID was announced and the lockdown was started in March, we January, February, we saw an increase, and people didn't leave. So we actually saw an increase in our flows. That meant more people were here using the wastewater system and staying here. But you can see the other 2021, the orange, 22 is the blue, and 23 is the red. We're following typical standards. We're not seeing there is no major increase unless we go out and actively try to get more customers onto the base. It's fairly flat flows. And that's what our master plan is projecting moving out. So we're looking at some other projects to look at how to make the plant more efficient. It's currently permitted at a higher capacity that's operating at. It's permitted at 0.71 million gallons a day of flow. We typically see about 0.2. And in the summer, that can drop down to as low as 0.14 MGD. So that's one place that we can look for overall efficiencies on the wastewater system, which might require some capital improvements and some modifications to the plant. But looking out at the trends, we don't see a significant growth. We're seeing the same trend year over year. I'm combining several slides together just to simplify. Again, our deliveries to the Rancho Minana Golf Course. The orange at the bottom of the stack graph is the waters that we deliver from our wastewater treatment plant. That's the effluent. Currently, all the effluent, we only have one delivery spot for the effluent from the treatment plant. That is to the golf course. The red is our reclaimed water and what we refer to as the cap divert water. So that's actually the process water that's lost in the plant itself. So instead of us sending down to the wastewater treatment plant for filtering and then resending it back up as effluent, we actually send it to them directly. And then the blue is actually the raw CAP water that we deliver to them to help in the summertime keep up with their demands. And you can see the green is actually what we're billing them for. So there is a gap in how this works. And looking at this as a 9-month picture, we bill them for all the effluent up front. But overall, we're still looking at a system that we're losing over 30% of the water that we deliver to them that we cannot bill them for. And that's something that with the master plan, we're really looking keenly at what can we do. And I think giving the town access to another spot to put our effluent is critical. We can save, we think, up to, between 50 and 70 acre feet a year, we can get beneficial use out of that we do not use right now that is going to the lakes that when they're overflowing, it's effectively being wasted. But that's going to require a capital project, and we're trying to identify that in the master plan. And this is an example of the losses that we see at the lake. We do have when the lakes get completely full, the larger of the three lakes, which is the most westerly of the three lakes, has an overflow to the wash, and we actually have a meter on that, so we can see it January, February, March when they have colder temperatures. Last year especially was wet. They effectively don't need our water, and our water overflows the wash, and that's a trend we've been seeing for years now. We have the monitoring to tell us that. So we do have to continue discussions with them about the evaporation loss, which is, again, the surface area, and leakage that's potentially occurring because of the liners being at their useful life, we believe. So, and then the town can control the overflow, which we need to do a capital improvement to actually give us somewhere else to put the water beneficially for the town. So it's going to be a multi-step process to move that forward, but it's going to require us to work with Rancho Minana to get a solution in place. Quick update on our backflow program. It's going well. We actually do use a software package to manage this. The backflow is where the town is trying to protect the water system from having water brought back into the system and introduced. And some people get confused sometimes because they're saying, well, what are you trying to protect from? Well, we know our system has line breaks. We do depressurize the line. And depending on what's going on the property, we can draw water from the property back into the system. So the backflow is there to prevent that back siphoning from occurring. So we have both commercial and there's a lot of residential accounts that have backflow preventers. So we're continuing to do our inventory work, to continue it, to make sure that we got the proper inventory of it all. And then the people actually are getting notification. I think the process is going well. But when we explain it to people, I think they understand why we have it. Not everybody has a backflow device, but it is a very valuable, it's actually a mandated program that we actually have to protect the water system. The pre-treatment, I've been talking a while about our pre-treatment. So pre-treatment is our wastewater system. And that is where we have a user that is going to introduce something to the wastewater system that could either be detrimental to the wastewater system itself, the lines, the lift stations, and or the treatment plant and the treatment process. So we asked them, grease interceptors are the most common, but we actually have sand oil interceptors at several of our vehicle repair shops, automotive repair shops. So we manage all that. We've been rolling out a online software package. Previously, we had done this all with just Excel spreadsheets. The new package is called Swift Comply, and we're just rolling that out. So we've got the inventory in, we've been using it for a couple of months, and now we're rolling it out to our customers. So the expectation is it's online. It actually requires them, like our backflow program, we actually require the backflow inspections to be done annually, and the people submit the information through the software package and we manage it. That's how we've transitioned to with the pre-treatment program, where we will just do spot inspections as we feel necessary, but the people will be uploading what we call the manifest. When someone has gone out and cleaned out the interceptor, they're required to actually upload that information. Then we monitor it, and then we just do more quality control on the back end. So we're spending less staff time, but we believe we'll get a better product at the end of the day to make sure that the system is being properly managed and these devices are being properly maintained. So anybody on the program in December, we're expecting, we are doing outreach right now to inform people of the next steps in that process. Carefree disconnects. We're nearly done with the project, or Carefree is nearly done with the project. You can see the three large transition areas. Again, transition area A was largely done in the beginning of the year. That's why we saw the dip. But there are still some accounts. So in area A, the lows, what was CVS, and the storage unit are still on the system. Everything else has been transitioned off. We understand in area A, Carefree is waiting for their new reservoir site to be online before they can provide fire flow. Area B, there's 23 accounts that we're still servicing in the Nighthawk and Hawks Nest neighborhoods. Carefree has to rebuild a booster pump station to get additional flow, both pressure and flow, before we can transition that off. One advantage is that'll allow us, I think, to reduce some of our pressures at the east side of the system, because we don't have to pump all the way up to the Nighthawk and Hawks Nest area anymore. Area C has been fully transitioned. So again, there's a handful of accounts, a total of 26 that are still until they're fully transitioned. I think they all actually have Carefree meters in the boxes, and they give us the monthly reports, and we still bill for that usage because it's still physically connected to our system. But the project is nearing completion. I think it has slowed down a little bit as again, the booster station upgrade and the reservoir site are wrapping up. I don't think they've even started the booster station upgrade right now, but nearly done. Overall, talked about water resources a lot tonight. So this is tabled a lot of stuff on it, but we're trying to show, again, the start is 2606 acre feet used to be our number for the town's municipal and industrial cap allocation. That has now physically been reduced to 2,228. We had the benefit of last year and this year because the transfer of that water to Carefree had not, it's called a subcontract, had not actually occurred. And we negotiated with Carefree to say that, while we're still paying for the capital and delivery costs, are you okay? Do you need that water? And can we use that water? And they said yes, and we've actually recharged it. So it's allowed us to accelerate our recharge and our long-term storage credit project that will slow down moving forward because the transfer has occurred this year. So we have less of a buffer, I guess, to do that. So in total, we're close to 1,700 acre feet of water has actually been stored for long-term storage credits. That's almost a year's worth of water in the ground. I guess it was brought up earlier by Vice Mayor, but it really would have been nice if we'd started this 10 years ago and had a much bigger bank account, but I'm glad that we have that bank account for the town. we will have to figure out and work with the agencies. All our water is being stored with Central Arizona projects. That we'll have to figure out how we get access to that, but we're small compared to the other people, including the CAP. So that'll follow through, but that's something that we're going to look for as not something that we'd use for just annual usage, but if we get in a shortage situation, that's a pot of water that we can then manage as we move forward. If we do see something coming up that we're short on water, we could do a water transfer with someone or do something else or become something of value to the town. So it's great to have that and continue that to grow that as we can. And that's about it on this slide. So again, we do a monthly delivery. You can see that the columns there are showing what we've sent to customers versus what we sent to recharge. So sorry, some of that's covered, but yeah, I'll give credit to staff members, especially Ryan Hill, who's really managing this for us, making sure that we keep up with what we need and making sure that we have all the regulations met and all the documentation working with CAP and their staff. So this past quarter is a very stressful time for the utility. We actually had the CAP pipeline go out of service. What had happened is the pipeline was running. We were running it with all 4 booster pump stations running with all 3 booster pumps at each station running. So we're running 2,100 gallons a minute up to the site to try and meet the peak summer demands in July. There was a storm event. There was no rain, but high winds actually knocked down a tree, which knocked out a power line for APS, which then did a hard stop on the booster pump station. When power was restored, one of the 3 pumps, pump number 2, did not like that hard stop. So the motor and the starter unit were damaged. So staff had to go back out and try to fix this. It ended up taking 2 long days, and I appreciate all the efforts by the Council for Outreach and then the citizens actually helping us reduce our water demand usage to get us through. We ran the reservoirs, our Deary and our Rockaway reservoirs, and even our Desert Hills reservoirs to a dangerously low level. But it's one of the reasons you have reservoirs is for emergency storage, and we used it that day. We have some lessons learned. This winter, we want to go back in and do some piping modifications specifically for the isolation valves for each of the pumps. So we're going to plan some outages and get some pipe work done. But the conditions down there they're hard. You can see they're difficult to work in, and just the condition of the pipes themselves are challenging. So we have to take it in order and try to get the work done. But the one issue we had here is some of the isolation valves for the individual pumps were not working at this site. The isolation valves for the site itself. So every time we went in to do work, we actually had to isolate the site, and that severely restricted our ability to provide water because we couldn't send any water up the pipeline. So that is something we have to correct this year and get into all 3 vaults. The CAP 1 site's actually in better shape, but the CAP 2, 3, and 4, we have to do some work this year, and you'll see that in the capital program. We've budgeted out some funds to allow us to move that forward. Something we've done with our fire department is talking with, we do have a lot of long dead end lines. I mentioned that we have to flush the system. In Spur Cross Road, when it was a private water company, they had worked with a developer to actually install a large pipeline. It actually goes up Schoolhouse Road, turns down Fleming Springs, goes to the west, and then continues up Spur Cross Road. It's a large 12-inch line. When you see it on our distribution maps, you're going, why? Well, they were originally planning to have a large development on Spur Cross, which then the town got together and actually protected the area, and with Maricopa County made it into the Spur Cross Ranch, but we're still left with the infrastructure to manage. So the water line, we typically would have to flush water out of that because it's a large 12-inch line. There's not enough demand in that area. But we worked with the Jim Ford and the fire department and said, this would be a good location. It's actually close to the wildland interface with the, and how do we protect that area up there? So we said, if we had a fire hydrant up there, we can flush more aggressively, as well as provide fire protection in this area. So that's where we work together again with Jim Ford and the Days Mountain Fire. And we now have a new fire hydrant installed at the top end of that. That's something that can benefit the town in multiple ways, not just a water system.
Sean, if I may, I have a question about that. I know that area relatively well. When at the end of the system, that would be the top of the blue line. I think that water goes down the slope and into Jewel of the Creek.
It does.
Where the hydrant is, would that water then be flowing in the opposite direction, potentially going across Spur Cross Road?
There's a little null there. So if you open we call the main hydrant port, I think it's 4.5 inch that we call the pumper port at the front end of it. Yeah, you would go right across the street to spur across. The other two actually go around, and there's actually channels that would bring around that little null. So we're actually just below little null. They actually, my understanding, what I've been told is that we have our 12-inch line actually goes up to the top of that hill that you see in the
Right.
backdrop, and they were planning to do a reservoir up there. So that's how it got built. So we usually would flush out the top of the reservoir, but we continue to do that. This would be if we want to do more aggressive flushing on the line, and if we open up the smaller ports, it'll go around the backside.
But that water from that blue hydrant, that's not going to go over the hill into the Jewel of the Creek. I think that would be coming down south.
If I open the what would be the right port on the picture here, the
Right.
backside, that would actually go around the backside and continue down to the same spot where we're decharging and recharging right, or sending the water right now. So we can still at the top of the line, we have an auto flusher unit that helps flush the line, but by having this hydrant here allows us to do more aggressive flushing operations and to provide fire protection. So.
Okay, so that water still would go down into Jewel of the Creek.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I highlight one of the things that, we got, I've got to say more of the town has a very good maintenance crew. So one thing that we're doing, and we actually try to do a lot of stuff in-house as we can. You can see here, we actually took at the 14th Street booster station in Desert Hills, and the pictures probably don't show it adequately enough, but staff had a problem with one of the pieces of pipes, the connections, what they call the header pipe, the connecting the pump. So we were able to go out and actually weld it in spot and do it with our own resources to get this done instead of having to bring in a contractor. So it's allowed us to keep up on maintenance activities by actually having a maintenance supervisor who is actually double duty with the treatment plant supervisor. He's wearing 2 hats right now, and then having 2 maintenance staff to keep up with this, so we can be proactive and get into proactive maintenance rather than reactive maintenance. So we still find a lot of issues to deal with, but the staff, I give a lot of kudos to what they're doing and keeping up and making the system more reliable. The water treatment plant itself, this is the inside of the Paul membrane trailers. The Paul membranes have been in operation for almost 3 years now, and this summer we actually had a crack develop in one of the Paul membranes themselves, which had to take each trailer has effectively 2 racks, 4 racks total between the 2 trailers, and there's a total of 144 cassettes. That's actually, the cassettes are what actually treat the water. So we had a crack develop in one of them. It happened suddenly, so we actually had to take that trailer out of service temporarily, remove that, and then now we've actually worked with the vendor to get some more. Our biggest fear is in the spring we were starting to look at getting replacement cassettes, but we were told at the time that it could take up to a year. Well, the manufacturer, we've worked with them. Now we're getting them much more quickly, but we're trying to get ahead of that. So we bought 4 cassettes. Or 5, sorry, spares. We've got 4 installed. So we had 1 spare left. So we did another order of 5. So now we have 6 spares for the whole 144 total, but it's just something we have to manage. These are actually complicated little systems. They got a lot of things. We're having issues with the compressor systems. That's a project we're trying to do this year to try and link the 2 trailers together with a common compressor to reduce usage. But the staff spent a lot of time making sure that everything is properly maintained. And again, things like proactively thinking, okay, we need to get some spare units in case something goes wrong with these cassettes. What they told us initially was you'd have a 10-year lifespan. Most of them are working. It's just, again, one of them failed. So we have to be proactive, making sure we have the equipment available in case something does fail. I've talked about the water meter replacement program in the past, and we are moving forward with the project. We ran into a little bit of a snag. So overall, this is for the Cave Creek water system. It was several years ago, the town had actually updated the Desert Hills water system to a Neptune-based drive-by radio system. As the town's meters have been failing, and the reading system, which is an Itron system, there actually were 2 different, we had different meter bodies tied to a different system, where the Neptune's a nice system. It's the meter body, and the registry, what reads and reports that it's 1 unit. We've elected to move forward with just updating. So everything's going to be Neptune system, and we're trying to get the Cave Creek system updated to an AMI system. So we're actually going to be seeing not real time, but up to hourly, if not 4-hour gaps or blocks of time, we'll actually see usage reported back into the system. So what we ran into is that this was tied to a grant with the Bureau of Reclamation. The Bureau of Reclamation has not released the funds. We're in the final issues. Because we're going to install base repeater radio collector sites at 5 locations, they are asking us to do a historic and cultural clearance of those 5 sites. So we actually hired a consultant to do that work. Once they're done with the report, which I'm hoping will be done, if not by Christmas, just after Christmas, they're thinking 60 to 90 days for Bureau of Reclamation staff to review the report. Once they're comfortable and they've reviewed it, then they will be releasing the dollars to us. So we're on a bit of a holding pattern right now with if we spend the town's matching funds, then we're sort of backwards with the way the grant was written. So we sort of hit a little bit of a snag in the project that we didn't anticipate until we talked to the Bureau of Reclamation a couple months ago.
I'm glad they're helping you out.
We actually have 3 meters installed in the system that actually we put they have what's called a cellular radio. It's an adapter unit. We prefer not to move forward with that because it actually means that besides the meter, you actually have a separate little box. But we're actually getting near real-time data out of those. So we actually have those installed at 3 locations, and we did put up a temporary collector site just to see what we could get. And we actually are getting really good data. So we're really excited when we can finish the project and get all the collector sites up. We can get, again, almost hourly data. And the next step is we're going to be working with a vendor to actually have their website available. So people will be able to log in through the town's website and see their water usage and then set their parameters. Town staff can look at it system-wide, and people will actually be able to log in and actually see their own usage, which we think is going to be a great step forward in conservation. If we can educate people on what's going on, they can see leaks quicker. We can help notify, hey, say there's something going on. We can set our parameters to try and identify it. So I think that's going to make the next, in my mind, one of the next biggest steps for the town and for conserving water is to basically make people more aware of their usage, and we can send that information out. So we're making progress. We just sort of ran into a bit of a snag with the, it's through the federal NEPA process, and the cultural and historic clearances are required. So even though we're putting up a little, what's a 1 inch diameter, 4-foot antenna on a pole at some of these sites, we actually have to do a cultural historic clearance of each site. It's just following the process.
When do you think this system will be in operation to where it can be used for conservation?
I believe as soon as we can get the collectors fixed in spot, we'll be able to start rolling some information out. I think we're collecting with just the temporary one we've set up. We're collecting data, hourly data on over 300 meters right now. So if I can get the back end to work, I could actually be sending that information out to 300 customers right now.
So you get the other 1,400 meters to do.
Yeah, there's like
or 1,900, I
there's
guess.
2,500 meters in the Cave Creek system. We have 700 meters have already been changed out to Neptune meters. We have to do a little bit of retrofit to some of them. We're sort of a 2-step process. We want to set the collector sites all up and then see which meters are being read so we can understand. And then the vendor told us they anticipate we're going to have to do a cellular connection to about 20% of the meters. They actually are coming out with a new cellular meter as of June, July, which will be an integral unit. Again, we've got 3 installed right now, and it's actually, I'll bring a picture next time. It's a second box attached to the meter with an antenna. So it actually clutters the box up a lot, and especially for our smaller meters. So by this delay in the Bureau of Reclamation, allows us actually time for the vendor to release those. So the gaps that we find next summer, we can actually infill with the cellular. Answer the big question. I think we're going to be done this by the end of next calendar year, but I think we can start rolling out information in the next few months to some users.
That's good news.
And my one fear is people who are going to see it are going to be jealous who don't see it. But I'm going to say it's going to take, I think, about the next year to finish the project up. But we're going to take that next leap. And then, I built into the capital program, as you'll see in a couple of weeks, is to start doing that in Desert Hills, which is to start set some collectors systems up there and help getting the Desert Hills customers on the same system. We're running it against the one problem with the Desert Hills system is that the initial meters that were put out there were 1 generation older, so they don't meet the AMI parameters as quickly, but we won't know until we start setting the collectors. But we're making progress. I'm excited about it. Wastewater treatment plant. Again, there's always a lot of activity out there. We just highlighted on, just our odor scrubbers out there, again, our crew. We've been short-staffed at that facility. We've been down 1 person. It's been hard actually trying to find a third body. We have a third FTE that we haven't been able to fill. But the staffers still continue to work. And we have the process odor scrubbers are what take the foul air from the treatment process and treat it. But they do require a lot of work. The town's wastewater treatment plant is one of typically in the top 5 water users for the town. So we're looking at efficiencies, making sure these work. We do want to look at a program to see if there's other technologies you can use, just from forward thinking of saying, you know, the loading on these is not bad or not that significant that we need. These wet odor scrubbers are really meant for really high intense H2S concentrations. As we've been managing and treating the collection system and cleaning the collection system, we're finding we're getting less odors at the plant. So we may be able to change these out to a different technology. That'd be something, it'd be a capital upgrade, but then long term is we're saving water use. Because again, this plant uses a lot of water. These wet scrubbers need potable water. We can't use reclaimed water. And since our water's from Central Arizona product hard water, we actually have to treat it all with water softeners. So we have a lot of salt use, we have a lot of water use at this, and then a lot of it gets returned back into the plant. So yeah, if we can, the staff have been working to optimize and keep them working as efficiently as we can, but we're looking forward to see if there's something else we could use. There's some other treatment processes we could look at. Wastewater collection system, we do have projects. I think when Mitzi did her update, it was showing that on the capital program, we hadn't spent much money. She didn't see the invoices that came in just after she did her presentation. So we'd spent some time. People might have noticed that the closure that we had, the lane closure going up the hill on it'd be Cave Creek Road going eastbound. Just towards Mountain View Pub. So we actually did some work in that area. We actually repaired some manholes, and we actually had to do some work with the lateral for Sansui Restaurant, which is actually, we found out it's about 350 feet off their property, parallel to Cave Creek Road. And we were able to get some cleaning done of that and help that out. And then more so, the manholes down there had to be basically fully rebuilt. And then we were actually in Stagecoach Village itself, and there is a 6-inch sewer line that runs through that's considered public. And the new Galloway Ridge Apartments will be tying on that line. So when we were in there, it's very difficult to clean that line because when they constructed it, they didn't construct it with manholes. They put cleanouts, and they're single direction cleanouts. So we took the opportunity. There was actually some damage to the lines where joints had failed. And we had 2 manholes installed at locations that best help us get through that system so we can actually better manage it in the future. So it took some time and got that work done. We were trying to get it done, the work done before the new tee box was opening up too, because we're right in their front driveway. So we were successful in getting that work done. And now we have better access to that line to manage it, especially when the apartments come online. So we still continue to do some work through there, and we probably have a couple other manholes, but we have a bunch of other projects identified, and including this year, we're trying to do one 10-inch sewer repair just around the corner in Andorra Hills Wash on the east side of Cave Creek Road. So that's part of our capital program that we're trying to get done. So we have a lot of work on that. And overall, the capital improvement program, you know, we have a lot of projects between our water, wastewater, and Desert Hills collection system, or Desert Hills system that we're working on. So I have a spreadsheet here of all the projects, and you see it with the CIP. And we're actually making some good progress. Next week, I have a new gentleman going to be joining our team as our new deputy director. So we'll be able to, Nicholas Larson. So he's physically moved down here. So at the next meeting, I'll have him come so I can introduce you. I asked him if he'd come tonight, but he's actually moved his family down here. He's coming from Page, Arizona, and is joining us from the Page Utility Company up there in the water and wastewater side. So he's been up there. He worked his way up through the operation. So he has operating certifications, but he's been their deputy director for about 2 years. So I think he's going to bring great skills, and then, you know, someone who can help take the load, and especially we got a lot of projects to do and contract management to do. And I think we can get a lot of stuff done by an extra body being in the admin side to get stuff done. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I look forward to me being able to council being able to meet him. So, and with that, I will conclude my presentation.
Okay, there's public comment on this.
David Phelps. No additional.
Well, I certainly, I remember the first time I walked into Water Advisory Council 10 years ago, and there were no reports, nothing. It was just, the water's on, we're doing good. And this really highlights all the opportunity areas and the progress. There's a lot of progress in these too. So congratulations to the whole utility department, Sean, and you personally. Thank you.
That was the alligator and swamp days.
With that, we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.